you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks, Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There, that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you. We are the oldest living podcast that still broadcasts daily. There's only a handful of the originals left, and we are one of them, and we aren't living everybody so far. So support the show. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today, an amazing young man on the show with us today. We're going to talk about his book called Golden Men, The Power of Gay Midlife, out 2022 by Harold Kooden, and he's a doctorate as well. Do you want me to call you doctor on the show, Harold, or?
No, just Harold is fine.
All right. So Harold is an openly gay, white clinical psychologist, in private practice and a fellow of the American Psychological Association. In the APA, he was chair of a task force on the study of lesbian and gay psychologists and founder and board member of APA Division on LGBTQ issues. He was a founder and board member of the National Gay and Lesbian Education Foundation, board member of the New York State Martin Luther King Jr. Institute for Nonviolence, and founding member and community activist of Services and Advocacy for GL, otherwise known as SAGE, or short for SAGE, maybe. He was also the North American male representative of the Becoming a Psychoanalyst and Psychotherapist, of the International Gay and Lesbian Organization, I should say. I cross lines there. So he's a male representative for them. Besides having authored many articles on gay psychology, in 2000, he published Golden Men, the aforementioned book, and he co-edited Different Paths Towards Becoming a Psychoanalyst and Psychotherapist. I should refer all my girlfriends to him. Welcome to the show. How are you, Harold?
Okay. I'm okay.
I probably need some help myself, too. So give us .coms. Where can people find you on the interweb, sir?
They can look me up either on the book title or my name, Harold Kooden, and just put author or just my name, and it'll come up.
All right. And give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your book.
What started it was that I was one of the first openly gay psychologists in New York City back in the 70s. And when I started having a practice, even though I'd been in community mental health for a number of years, I just kept getting so many referrals of gay men who basically were just dealing with internalized homophobia. Many had been in therapy, many had very unsuccessful results. And because I was openly gay, they felt comfortable. And that was pretty much the large group. But then starting in the 80s, I started getting men who were ill, who had been to a colleague of mine who was an openly gay physician. And this was at a time when there was this weird disease that was affecting the immune system. And I started writing about it because no one knew what was happening. And they were flooding men with all these medications. And I had two very good examples of that told me something about what I had to do. I got a referral from the same physician of two men. Both happened to be white, both Presbyterian ministers in their late 30s. And they both were coming up HIV positive and told they had about a year to live.
Wow.
And so one of the men I looked at, and when he came in my office, and I said, okay, you know you're going to die, and in a year, how do you want to live? And he admitted that he was more afraid of becoming an old gay man than he was of dying.
Really?
And he continued his use of coke daily, and within a year, he was dead.
Wow.
The other man, identical in the sense of age, occupation, I said the same thing to him. He looked at me and said, I didn't expect you to say that. And I said, I did, so let's get to work. And he began to take charge of his life, and he began to really make decisions based on what he thought was best for himself. And the last I heard, he was still alive in 2005.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that there are so many gay men who were afraid about being old, I realized this internalized gay ageism was killing people.
Yeah.
So that's when I made the decision to start working on this book, which would do a couple of things. One, show that the coming out process teaches us life skills, teaches us how to deal with crises. And those are the same skills we can develop in dealing with midlife and any crises in our life. So I made the decision to write a book that would deal with, one, internalized homophobia, and two, internalized gay ageism. And so the first part of the book was basically going through what the process of becoming an adult man is for a gay man, how it's different than for non-gay men, and focus on how to deal with internalized ageism, which is so that the first part of the book, in a sense, is theoretical. The second part is a series of exercises in which I ask questions and give ideas as how to answer, but the conclusion of how those answers each person finds for themselves. Because what I wanted to do, Chris, was to keep therapy, or I should say, get it out of the therapeutic office, which is very privileged, very basically big city oriented, and give it out to the world. So if someone reads the book and starts dealing with the exercises and takes it seriously, it amounts to about 3 or 4 years of intensive therapy.
Oh, wow.
And so I purposely geared it so that a single person somewhere out in the boondocks in small towns can gather other friends and use the book. They don't need to go to a private therapist. They don't need to access the profession. It's in their hands, in their terms, and exercises that they can do themselves.
And you said it's about 4 years, I think you said, of therapy, and it's concise in the book?
3 to 4 years, yeah. If they do it, yeah.
Yeah. And probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're worried about coming out, or you have all those anxieties that I know gay people go through, contacting a psychiatrist probably isn't something you want to reach out at some point, at that early point maybe, right? Because you're still pretty private in the closet. You don't want anybody knowing maybe what you're interested in. And even just picking up the phone and calling a psychiatrist is probably a bit of a hurdle. I don't know.
And that's what I wanted to eliminate.
Yeah.
I wanted
Especially
someone to be able. Yeah, I wanted someone who, if they wanted, they could get some friends together, they could talk about it, they could answer the questions that are asked. It's basically about how to take pride in yourself, not only in coming out, but also in aging. And what I've found is by really delineating what's in the process of coming out, men develop this skill of learning how they can deal with other crises in their life. And in order to sort of do this, I explained very carefully how the the growing up process is different for gay than it is for non-gays.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happened recently is that I live here in Mexico, in Oaxaca, Mexico. And I'm involved with a library here, and I've been talking about the book, and I'm actually going to be giving a program in a couple of weeks on what gay men can teach non-gay men about being men.
Oh, that's an interesting thing.
It's when I started really looking at the whole process and thinking about it, what I discovered really was that we as gay men build our sense of being a man from a very internal process. It's building it brick by brick because we don't have the supports of the society around us. And to be blunt, most men get their sense, most non-gay men get their sense that they're men because they're having sex with women or because they're relating to women. What do you do if the definition of a man is you have sex with women and you're not someone who has sex with women? How do you build a sense of you're being a man?
And I imagine there's a lot of family stigma, religious stigma.
Absolutely.
I know in Utah, when I was spending a lot of time there, they have a high suicide rate because the Mormon Church teaches everybody to alienate any non-believer in the faith, and especially LGBTQ people. And so those folks end up getting lost, and sometimes they're teenagers, they're very young, and between their challenges they have with developing what you're talking about as to who they are and their identity and what it means, and then the persecution and the hate that they receive and being alienated from your family when you're young and you're developing is really freaking hard. It's the worst rejection of all, right? Because if a stranger rejects me, I don't care. But if your mom rejects you or your dad rejects you, that hurts.
Yeah, Chris, in our groups, it's a sort of mythology that all gay children are orphans.
Wow.
Because if you can't tell, okay, let me put it this way. My husband is a black man, and he did not have to tell his parents he was black.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
It doesn't mean he had to deal with racism in the society.
But
he and I got into a lot. I'm sorry, what?
It's kind of like that analogy that how did you decide when you were heterosexual or how did you decide when you were gay based upon what you're attracted to? And most people are born that way. Their attraction is based upon, at least in my belief and everything I've studied and people I've known, it's based on when they're born and it's just who they are. I remember the first time I heard that line, when did you decide that you were heterosexual? And I'm like, I don't know, I was just born that way. It's the same with as far as I'm concerned. And so that preposition you made reminds me of that analogy as well, and how clear that is. Yeah. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. You were talking a little bit, I don't know if you want to expand more on your husband or if I cut that off.
Okay. A couple of years ago, I was asked to give a talk on resilience to the Environmental Protection Agency about the resilience. This was around COVID. And I was to talk to the EPA gay and lesbian group and friends, which is there are about 600 members of the group throughout the world. And of course, when you know who came in, that got canceled because I couldn't talk about none of those, that kind of talk was allowed. But in talking about it with John, my husband, we talked about resilience. And the question I had to him is, given the country that you've been living in for all of your life and for over 300 years, how did Blacks survive? And his answer was family, community, and church. And what I did was translate that in terms of the coming out process, that to come out, one needs to first accept oneself. That is the first step that one has to take. And it's a huge step. And that's the equivalent I make to the Black being able to be in the family and get the support from the family. But it's an internal process for gays. And where community comes in, the coming out process is where you look to a peer group. You let go of where you were and the people you associated with or got reinforcement from, but you looked to a new group that recognized you. And the equivalent of church for the Black community is for us hope, that there is a better life, that there is something beyond. And so the reason why, and I really was interested in being on your show and talking about this, is because what I've discovered is there are a huge number of groups in the United States now dealing non-gay men trying to find a new way of being a man, trying to let go of misogyny and sexism, and trying to see how they can be in the world, feel they're men without feeling a loss. And so I've discovered we actually have a group here of men, non-gay men, who've gotten together talking about men, and they've labeled it men without manuals. And so it's fitting right in with what I've been saying, because here are men who have been used to feeling they are men, trying to find a new way of functioning and having to give up some of the old connections and actually going through the same process we do in coming out. It's letting go of where you got your support, looking to a new group who can recognize you and seeing there's a positive future.
So this would be the establishment of basically, quote unquote, their churches, maybe. Is that right? Do I have that right?
It would be for some.
But community is everything that humans need. We need community. We need people that, I grew up in a cult, in a seriously brainwashed cult, and was just being assaulted all the time, mentally and physically, because I would not conform to believing the bullshit. And I was lost in a lot of places. And there were times where as a teenager, I considered suicide. And I was lucky enough to find people who thought like me, because I was a freak. I was a person who thought like an atheist. And I was alone in the world. And I imagine, I don't know what it's like to be a gay person and grow up that way, but I know what it's like to grow up feeling that you're weird, you're the other, you don't fit in, you're the one everyone hates. They used to call me the devil. My girlfriend's mothers would call my work and try and get me fired because I wasn't of the cult. And I went through all sorts of persecution over all my years I'm still going through it, because part of my family is still in the cult. And finally, I found voices that made me know that I wasn't the insane one. I found George Carlin. George Carlin saved me. He was like my father. When he died, I cried more over him than my father. And my father was a good man. But George Carlin, I'm trying to think of who else was in the influence, but more and more I met people that thought there was different religions outside the cult. And there were different thought processes. And there were people that thought like me, because somehow I just was born into thinking that this was bullshit and questioning everything. I don't know why I was born that way, but I was. And so I had to go through that whole rebirthing movement. Even when I declared at 16, I wasn't going to cheat going to church anymore, or fake going to church anymore. I had this whole game that's in my book I used to play. But the persecution and the ugliness I felt probably is just minuscule compared to what gay people go through when they're coming up, because society is still not very accepting, I don't think, especially in today's environment the last 2 years. But no, I went through that, and basically what I'm trying to say is finding people who thought like me and were like me and made it okay to be like me saved me. I don't know where I'd be. Maybe I probably would have put a gun to my head a long time ago. Don't do that, folks. And because I found voices like me. So I can see why that helps the gay community as well.
Wasn't planning to say this, but back in 51, I was 14 years old, and I got arrested for being actively gay.
What?
And
that was the 50s, huh?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles?
Oh, yes. It was a police state.
Wow.
At that time, if you were an adult and arrested for being gay, the police would go into your house and could arrest everyone in your phone book, your personal phone book, suspicion.
Wow. It's a great thing we came with civil rights.
So here I was, 14 years old.
Wow.
The police telling my family that I'm gay.
So your parents didn't know, so they outed you to your parents?
Oh, yeah. My parents were divorced at the time, but they had to everybody. And of course, I got totally rejected by everybody and condemned. And I attempted suicide and was only saved by a fluke. So I know what it's like to feel absolutely no hope, no future, nothing.
Yeah.
Because I was told I couldn't even go to college. I couldn't get accepted because of my arrest record, yada, yada, yada.
Wow.
But a very, very important thing happened. When I was in the detention home, I looked around and I didn't see anyone who looked like me. A white, middle-class Jewish kid. No one. They were either Black, Hispanic, Mexican American, this was Los Angeles, or what I would say Appalachia looking. And that's when I realized I was one of them. They were the outliers. They were the ones who were outside society. And that's the way I was seen.
Yeah. That is unfortunate.
That was a definitive moment, and luckily I was able to, when I turned 18 and was no longer a ward of the court, I left California and moved to Chicago.
Were they more welcoming there?
I didn't see my family for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. That's got to be hard.
It was, but the good part about it was I was free to become me. I didn't have my family on my shoulder. I did theoretically because I couldn't get them out of my head, but I didn't have my family telling me what to do or how to behave. And so I didn't see my Marine Sergeant brother for 6-7 years. Let's face it, the world at that time, even though I knew all of the facts and the information, when my brother, when I was a teen, was going to give me the sex talk, teach me. And of course, I knew everything he was talking about. And I then asked casually, like, innocently, what about sex between two men? And his response was to tell me how he and fellow Marines broke the back of a gay Marine that they found cruising in a park.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So,
and what year was this again?
It was pretty clear, huh?
What years were these again? To give us just some context.
This would have been 1950.
Oh, wow. That is crazy. That is wild.
Yeah. I've had a history. Look, my birthday in September, I turned 90. So I've had a lot to go on.
You've seen some things. And is this what maybe made you interested in psychology? A lot of people who suffer childhood trauma end up going into psychology, sometimes because
Probably.
it's cheaper to save yourself than it is to pay for the hourly.
I also came from a strange background. On my mother's side of the family, all the men were physicians. My grandfather, my uncle, my aunt married a physician. My first gift when I was like 4 or 5 years old was a toy doctor's kit.
Oh, really?
I was programmed to become a doctor. What kind, how good, that was irrelevant.
Yeah. So you do that, and then you've gone on to quite a career from what we read from your bio and things that you're interested in. And it is interesting, the men's groups that are out there that are forming now, they're trying to, I think, refine masculinity. Some of them are selling femininity, and they don't realize what they're selling. And part of it is dating and mating and marrying and having children, the things that men tend to start and propagate. They're kind of lost. They're like trying to find people that are worth building with. So it is an interesting time. And I think I mentioned to you before the show, I spent some time at a gay pride event. It was a big vendor shop and celebration. And seeing the community there was so wonderful and so nice. And I do a lot of street photography, so I wander the streets on weekends sometimes if I'm not doing portrait, and I just shoot strangers, photograph strangers, I should say. Jesus. And a lot of people, about 75% of the people like me. About 25% of the people, I get dirty looks, or I get delete that off your camera. And I don't mind, because it is a public place. There's no expectation of privacy, but I don't want to piss people off. I want to entertain people and make them laugh. And I give them a card so that they can always get a free photo, whatever I've done. But I got to tell you, I went to the Pride event, and it was 100% the most nicest people. And I was a little worried that some people might not want me taking their photo because they may not want that published on my website and outing them. You know what I mean? But everyone was just joyously wonderful. Everyone said yes. When I photographed, a lot of people told me no that are in the normal street. And they were just so wonderful. And I just came away going, how can anybody hate these folks? They're just so wonderful and so gracious and benevolent. But seeing the community there was really important. It was great to see there was so much support. I have some photographs we're editing right now of people that were in the furry community. I didn't know furries were part of LGBTQ. I'm just dumb that way. So I was like, oh, yeah. I thought they were like separate genres, but they're in there too. And just people from all walks of life, interesting people. I love how vibrant they are and how you can really see some of the characterizations and how they dress and express themselves. And it was just really wonderful. And so I think it's great. There's way more community now for gay people, but there's probably maybe still a long way to go for that in support.
There's quite a long way to go, because now that the lid has been taken off and all of what's negative, which has always been there, now feels free to express itself.
Yeah. I think you're talking about our current state of politics, correct? In America?
Yes.
In 2026, folks, just in case you're watching this 10 years from now, from some hovel underground, will the AI Terminators roam atop? But yeah, it's got to be a challenge to do all that and deal with it. And so your book helps walk them through it. There was a question I had for you in terms of the book. Let me get back to it here. So this helps them with the coming out process, helps some of the mental processes of identity, would you call it, in how they're, who am I and what do I, and if society, just because I'm not the most popular, I don't know if you call it the popular format, or I'm searching for a word, but what seems to be the most popular, what everyone else is doing, isn't always the thing. And that's the beauty of life, is the spectrum of the kaleidoscope of different varieties of things you can do. This would be a whole lot boring life if we all did the same thing, really.
Well, look, Chris, the thing that I think is so essential that we can share is that, how do you get a sense of yourself separate from what you do to other people? How can you get a sense, for a lot of, I see this all around, so many young men feel that their sense of manhood comes from how they can be so macho and either beat up a woman or put the woman down, etc. And so when your definition of yourself is what you do to other people, how do you then start getting a good sense of yourself independent of all of that?
Yeah. At that point, you're pretty much a sociopath, or it's one of two words. It's either sociopath or what's the other word I'm looking for? If you're committing violence and using people as prey, you're definitely.
What I'm talking about is non-gay men who think their sense of manhood is by being able to verbally put a woman down or keep a woman down, not in a one-on-one, but I'm better than you.
Oh.
It's all of those things. It makes me think of years ago when I remember there was a woman that I was friends with at school who I really liked, and we got along famously. And after I had not come out publicly at that point, and I remember finally sitting down with her and saying that there's something I want to tell you, and I came out to her. And she looked at me and said, I've known for a long time.
It's like when Barry Manilow came out and everybody's, yeah, dude, we've known this for 20 years.
My reaction at that point was I was still young enough to be caught up in so much homophobia. I thought, it's written all over my forehead. I'm so feminine. I'm so this. And I finally just gulped and I said, tell me, how did you know? And she said, it was actually very easy. I found myself being myself with you. I didn't play games. You were actually interested in who I was, and you listened to me. And she said, and I realized, he's treating me like a person, and I'm acting like, he must be gay.
He's a nice guy.
That was a big lesson for me, because it taught me about how I functioned, but also that it said, you're carrying around all of those negatives from childhood. It's time to let go of them.
Yeah. Yeah, let go. Do you find is the book helpful maybe to parents who are going through the process of finding out they have a gay son and how to properly help your son? I just can't believe people would dislove their children over being gay. I just can't understand that mentality. But
what you just said, I was involved in helping to create the first gay committee on the New York City Department of Mental Health. And one of the things were about all the children who are missing. That was at a time when missing children were put on milk carton, their pictures and all of that.
Yeah.
It turned out a good percentage of all the children were teens who were kicked out of their home by their parents because they were gay or lesbian. But the parents told the police, they ran away.
We didn't abandon them. They ran away. Jesus, that's soulless.
Yeah. So what you're saying, the book is useful for parents because it gives another perspective, because it also helps the parents, because when the child comes out, the child is automatically creating a situation for the parents that they can't tell their friends.
I never thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Because when I saw a lot of my clients would be upset at their parents because they didn't immediately embrace them and they didn't immediately, I accept you. And I said, look, you're in a sense isolating your parents. you've told them a fact which all of a sudden makes them isolated. They can't tell their friends now.
Wow.
And they maybe not even able to look at their friends in the eye. I said, so give your parents time. Give them time to adjust to this, because maybe going to PFLAG, the parents and friends of lesbians and gays, can help. But remember, once you tell that parent, that's putting them in a new situation in the world. Give them time too.
Yeah, because they probably have their own. At first, they might feel shame based upon their beliefs, whether they're religious or their beliefs of my child's going to be heterosexual. I know my mom still hates me for not giving her grandchildren, but it's a different story. But I can imagine there's a little bit of loss there where you're like, I'm not getting grandchildren, but that's not really true. There was at the gay pride parade, there was a lot of parents there with kids that were gay. And so they can do that. So don't worry, your parents, you'll be fine. They get those grandkids, but they don't understand it. They don't understand why is someone think differently than I do, and that's sometimes a hard thing for human beings to deal with and understand. And so I'm glad that people could read this book that are parents and understand, because you can do some really severe damage to children and LGBTQ people that are coming up. You can really misstep it. My parents misstepped horribly, me wanting to leave religion, until we went to a psychiatrist, and they watched the psychiatrist put me through the same psychotic bullshit that they had put me through. And witnessing that, and then our final blow up with the psychiatrist, where literally he got up and started screaming at me that I was doing all this, leaving their cult. Interesting enough, he was of the cult and paid for by the bishop of the cult to psychoanalyze. And I just wanted to leave. I just told my parents, I go, look, I don't believe in this. I have a friend I want to go play with on Sunday, and I can't go do that because I keep faking this going to church thing with you guys, and I'm just not going to live that lie anymore. And that was it. I just want to play with my friend and want to be free to do whatever I want on Sundays, and I want to have to deal with all the bullshit. And this psychiatrist literally jumped up and screaming at me in my face, pointing at my finger in front of my parents and saying, you're doing this for attention and all this crap, to where I got up and walked out. Them witnessing somebody else abusing me like they had abused me made them realize what they were doing, and they had a aha moment. And the next day he called and apologized and wanted me to come back, and the parents went, no, I think we understand where we're at now. And so that was kind of good for them, but there's a lot of damage that had to take place that could have been avoided up to that point. And I could see that could be the same in this situation. But there's a lot of, my audience will find out a lot about me after 16 years. I think I've ever told that story publicly. But I don't mean to minimize it. By my stories, I'm not meaning to minimize it or say I'm similar. I'm just saying the damage that you can do to, because here in Utah, a lot of, I don't know if I finished my thought on that back when we started the show, but a lot of those gay people in Utah we have a high suicide rate here of gay people, and they're usually young, and they're usually thrown out of their families and abandoned by their families, alienated by their church. And they're young too. They're teenagers, so they don't have resources. They can't just go find a house to live in, and they got plenty of money and a job and stuff. And so it's the worst. And a lot of people can go to religion if there's challenges, but since the main dominant cult here in Utah is one thing, it's hard to find a religion that's accepting of everyone.
I know. My nephew and his wife live in Sandy.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Tell them it gets better when they leave. Yeah. In fact, me and my father built most of Sandy and foundations and plastering them. Watch that whole city go up. As we round out the show, we could probably discuss these issues forever because they are important, but we want people to buy your book. And I think you mentioned before the show, do you want me to promote that if they go to your website, there's a promotion there?
Yes, the book is free. They can download the book.
So you can save a couple bucks. It's $13 on Amazon. You can save a couple bucks going to free. And why do you have it free, Harold? Why is that important?
Because it's about the message. It's why I priced the book as a paperback, and I didn't raise the price a lot from what it cost to print it, and because it's the message I want to get out there. If 10 people buy the book, but 1,000 people get the message, I'd rather that than sell 1,000 books and only 10 people get the message.
Yeah, and you're saving lives. You talk about the internal, what did you refer to? The internal
Homophobia.
homophobia? Is that
internalized homophobia and internalized gay ageism? Yeah, those are the two death-producing isms that I'm talking about.
Is that a self-hate sort of thing? So that's an internalized hate where, they're self-loathing sort of thing? Okay.
Look, Chris, I come from the belief if you're raised in the United States, no matter how much you may be against it, there's going to be some element of racism in you. There's going to be some element of homophobia. It's not a question, is it there or not there? It's a question of how much. You can't escape it. It's embedded in us.
Yeah, it's indicative of our society, racism, all the other isms, and it's so systematically baked in. I think we had Eddie Glaude Jr. on the show twice now, and I think we've got him coming for his upcoming books. And we talked about how endemic it is, how it's just built into the systems of government, the systems of localized government, redlining by the banks, and even now most of our communities are separated by the freeway, and
which were purposely built for that reason.
Yeah, for redlining, and it's interesting. Do you have hope for the future? Are things going? We did take a little bit of a turn here the last year and a half.
Too much. Activism is in my blood. I still have hope that I don't expect the change immediately. It's going to take time. I'm thinking of Angela Davis gave a talk in New York that we went to a couple of years ago. And now she's probably in her late 70s. And when it came time for the question and answers, she said, I will only talk to the students. And who were there. This was Riverside Church, and it was packed. And she said, the struggle may take 1,000 years. The important thing is that you're in the struggle.
So Marcus Aurelius used to talk about the obstacle is the way, right through. You got to take it on, and it's a battle. But no, it's unfortunate. A lot of the stuff. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's unfortunate some of the things that are going on today in our current politics, and the hatred and the ugliness and stuff, which is always funny because every Republican event they break Grindr, so it's just the most interesting. Like Don Lemon, I love Don Lemon and I watch him a lot, even when he's with CNN. I've tried to get him on the show multiple times, and for his books, and he'll talk openly about how people would openly hit him up that were heterosexual married Republican dudes at Republican conventions. And there's a lot of guys in here in the closet, maybe. That haven't come out. So it's interesting how much that group hates LGBTQ people, but it seems like there's more of them in that group than there are anywhere else. I don't know. It's kind of wild. That's the great thing about politics, the hypocrisy of it, I suppose. What can you say? If you are, you are. Just be who you are. But maybe that's the importance of reading books like yours. So as we go out, give people a final pitch out to order up your book, find out and learn more about you. Any questions they can ask you or reach out on your website, et cetera, et cetera.
Anyone can contact me. You can also just Google my name and it comes up.
Ah, it's the beauty of having a unique name. I'm jealous. Well, thank you very much for coming to the show. It's been a wonderful thing to have you on. I've had so many LGBTQ friends over the years, but there's an old thing that if you have issues with folks out there, folks, just remember the line from Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said once about another politician, he goes, I don't like that man. I should get to know him better. And basically what the message is education and learning about other people is really important because we're all stewards of each other on this planet. It's a really small lifeboat in the middle of a very ugly, mean, trying to destroy the universe. They're throwing rocks at us all the time. I think God's doing that. I don't know. He's throwing those asteroids at us. I'm just joking. Maybe it's Zeus. Anyway, maybe it's a really mad lesbian in the sky. You never know. Anyway, I'm just doing jokes, folks, and throwing asteroids or whatever. Anyway, you get the message. But please, try and learn to understand and other people and get to know other people. And people's sexuality doesn't define them as a human being or their value. We're all human beings, and we're all different, really. A lot of us are so different in so many different ways. And so learn about each other, educate yourself. The greatest thing I was always lucky was I've been exposed to so many different LGBTQ people over the years, where they were friends, where they work for me, and just knowing them as people, as human beings, and seeing their struggles and everything. And they have struggles just like the rest of us. So they're not much different. Their struggles may be a little more challenging because of the minority position maybe they hold in society, but let's all get along, folks. That's what I'm saying. That's my last pitch. That's all I got. So thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it, Harold. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thanks to my audience for tuning in. Thanks to Dylan, Matt. Let's see here what we got. Dylan, Matt's been really busy here. Good day, gentlemen. Thank you for the invite. Warmly, Dylan Founder. Thank you, Dylan. You wrote some really gracious things here that go on and on. I don't have a chance to read them and post them, but they'll be on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, Dylan. Thanks to my audience for tuning in. Order up his book, where refined books are sold. Golden Men, The Power of Gay Midlife, by Dr. Harold Kooden. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.